Hey, I'm Emmy Kendall, and I'm a romance author. My debut novel, Ricochet, is a second chance medical romance with high stakes drama, emotional depth, some surprises, and a swoony happily ever after. It will pull at your heartstrings.
Welcome to Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. This is a soft space to explore darkness, romance, and books, where no topic is too taboo. I'm your host, Casey, and this week I'm sitting down with author Emmy Kendall. We're going to talk about her forthcoming novel, Ricochet, which also happens to be Emmy's debut novel. Ricochet is a high-stakes, second-chance medical romance that pairs hospital drama with a soul-deep exploration of love, betrayal, and forgiveness, with more than a few plot twists along the way. And for someone like me who grew up watching TV shows like ER and Grey's Anatomy, I just know that I'm about to eat this book up. So if you're craving swoony chemistry, complex characters, and a happily ever after that earns every heartbeat, this episode is for you. And make sure to stay with us to the very end, as Emmy will share a beautiful love letter that she wrote to her readers. Emmy, welcome to the Love Letters and Books podcast. I am so happy you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I found your videos on TikTok and I was seeing you promote your upcoming book. And I would love if you could tell the audience a little bit about it. What makes this story so intriguing? What made you want to write it?
Absolutely. So, this book is my debut novel called Ricochet, and it is a second chance medical romance about two doctors who are rediscovering love after a bitter betrayal that happened when they were in medical school. We go on a fairly emotional journey for both of them as they navigate what love is, what forgiveness is, and how to move on in love. And also, you get a lot of high stakes drama with medicine along with it.
Oh, that speaks to the Grey's Anatomy fan in me, somebody who has always enjoyed a good medical romance drama. I feel like you definitely have an audience out there. So I'm so excited to talk a little bit more about your book. So introduce us to your main female character. What is her name? What is it about her that needed her story to be told?
So my main female character, her name is Dr. Tatum Erickson. She is a badass. She is a mess. She is just a woman trying to make it. She is a woman who has so many successes on paper, but when we get into her mind, we realize that she's fairly relatable. She's just trying to make things work. She comes from a very, very humble beginning where she had a mom that was not available, a father that was not available, and she was brought up by her older brother, Trevor, who is a very important subplot that you'll have to read about. But one thing that's really cool about her is even though she had those very humble beginnings, she is now a board-certified OB-GYN, and a really good one at that.
Amazing. Tell us a little bit about your main male character. What do we need to know about him?
Oh, Jonathan Ramsdale. So his name is Jonathan. We'll call him John. He is a broody kind of character, kind of grumpy, but he has the biggest cinnamon roll heart. He also comes from somewhat humble beginnings as well, with having his own issues in childhood that he, even though he's almost 40 years old, is still dealing with. And I think that's something important for everyone to hear is that, yes, you are still affected by things that happened to you whenever you were younger, even when you're almost 40 years old. So he has a major glow up in the book, and that's fun seeing him kind of navigate through that.
Oh, I love that. First of all, I love a secret cinnamon roll, but I also love the male glow up. I think that that is such an interesting story. And I think that it's so fun to see people differently than they see themselves and to navigate that in a story.
Absolutely.
So, well, I'm really excited about the book. And when does it come out and where can people find it?
Great question. So it comes out August 7th. It will be available on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. So all my Kindle readers can get it there.
Can you tell us a little bit more about their dynamic? Because what is it about them, the falling apart, the second chance, the coming back together? Where is the tension in the story?
One thing that's really important to know about these characters and what you'll learn about in the book is they both come from a place of not really knowing what love is. They both grew up with some pretty tumultuous situations in their childhood, which again you learn about. And when they meet each other in medical school, it's like sparks fly. It really is kind of like an instant love kind of thing when they're in medical school. They're instant best friends. They get each other. And I think it's that common thread of learning what love is, learning what it feels like not to be loved that they've never experienced before, another person experiencing before, that connects them. So when the betrayal happens, it totally throws them off their game. They go from it's almost an innocence type thing. The first time they grew up in a place where they didn't really know love, and they finally discovered it for the first time, and that love failed. And so that happens, and then when they're reunited over a decade later, there's a lot of animosity, as you can imagine. He clearly has not forgiven her. He actually wants to get rid of her. And one thing with Tatum is she knows she's at fault. She's the one that broke his heart. She's the one that destroyed their relationship. And so she doesn't blame him whatsoever. And so even more so, she is hating herself, if that makes sense. And having him back in the picture drives it home about how much she dislikes herself, how she blames herself for everything. But you are my first official interview to talk about this stuff. Like I talk about this stuff with my girlfriends all the time, and now I'm like, what does happen?
It's like, have I read the book that I wrote? Everyone goes through that. Don't worry about it. And I actually love that. I feel like that's something that as readers, we really enjoy. We love kind of seeing what the experience is for the writers. So there's no need to apologize. This is so exciting. And there's so many things.
Forever.
No. And there's so many things I'm excited about in this interview. Even just the fact that I'm talking to someone it's your debut novel and what that experience is like. That's so exciting for me. So I'm just thrilled that you're here and talking about it. Obviously, I'm intrigued by the book. And I'm wondering, what is it, do you think, about medical dramas and romance that capture our attention? What is it about that dynamic, the high stakes environment? What do you think it is?
Absolutely. I think several different things actually that attracts people to that. I think for medical stuff in general, I think everyone has a fascination with it, whether you can handle blood and guts or not. Everyone is clued in on their health. Everyone's curious a little bit about their health. And so I think there is this natural curiosity about health. I think what also intrigues people is that whole dynamic when you are in a hospital, having a nurse, having a doctor, having someone in authority over you, especially in romance. I think there's just something very delicious about that. So I think that's why it does so well, especially to the romance readers.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
I was a labor and delivery nurse for about a decade. And so when I started writing again, I felt the need to have an outlet to talk about the things that I love and that I'm passionate about women's health. And Tatum kind of brought that to fruition for me. So that's where she came from.
Oh, I love that. And thank you for sharing that. I am passionate about women's health. It was very much a part of my career for a long time. And I know that, I work in medical media still. So this story is really speaking to me. Did you find yourself reading a lot in the genre, the very specific sort of medical romance, or no? Is that not what inspires you?
Believe it or not, didn't really inspire it. Romance, definitely, I was devouring it. But what I discovered was there's not a lot of medical romance that I was writing. There's a lot of medical romance where there's a lot of romance and he's a doctor. This has a good corporation of both medicine and romance. So I'm excited to throw that into the genre. So it's going to be a little bit more like Grey's Anatomy in a way.
What is it about the FMC that you absolutely love? And is there something about her that frustrates you?
Sure. So Tatum, she really is a badass. I can say badass, right?
Yeah.
Making sure.
Girl, you can say so much worse. Don't worry about it. It's my podcast.
You're wild. Make sure I can say ass. She really is a badass whenever it comes to her career. There are moments in the book where she has to make split-second decisions and her badassery comes out and she's in charge. There are moments where she is the ultimate feminist and she's like, oh, of course. these men want to boss me around. They think I'm the nurse. And she really proves herself over and over again. The thing that frustrates me is she is so strong, but she is filled with so much doubt of herself. But, her patients don't see it. But at the same time, aren't we all that dichotomy?
Yeah.
And so it frustrates me, but then I also can relate to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, no, it's that perfect overlap. And it's so interesting when something does frustrate us and the reaction to it. And sometimes it's the thing that we're most in touch with, right? I was recording an episode, I think 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about the main female character. And I was like, why doesn't she just? I'm like, because I don't just, because I have the same problem. And I think that that's really interesting. As the reader, we get to sort of be a witness and process our own emotional responses to things through these characters, which is what makes them so engaging and makes us so, I don't know, so attracted to the genre, right? We get to put ourselves in these really intense emotional experiences, but the stakes are pretty low because we're not destroying our own lives. We're watching other people do it. And that's kind of a nice break every once in a while. Exactly. The girls need it every once in a while just to relieve the tension. So let's talk about their relationship in particular. I love how you shared about sort of their origin and backstory and some of the layers that people bring, right? When we think about our home of origin, our family, how we were raised, all of those things, and discovering love for the first time. And guess what? Sometimes it's really messy. And it should be and can be, and we, allowing ourselves the grace to mess things up. But what is it about their bigger love story that just called to you so much and felt like it needed to make it on the page? What was that thing that you're like, oh, I can't keep this to myself. I've got to share it.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things about their story that I haven't shied away from sharing is that this betrayal. You find out right at the very beginning of the story, Tatum cheats on him. And that's such a big taboo no in romance books. Like, oh no, like if they cheat, that's it. It's over. But I wanted to take on the challenge to show, not that I condone cheating. I don't think that's the message here. But I think the message here is about forgiveness. I think there's a strong message that there is no forgiveness without love and vice versa. And I think it's really important for just us as people to recognize that things are not always black and white. I'm not telling anyone, oh, if your husband, your wife, your whoever cheats on you, oh, just forgive them. But at the same time, I feel like there's sometimes more to the story. And so if someone chooses to stay, I think it's important not to judge right off the bat. There might be more to the story. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. I'm totally all over the place here. I am so sorry.
No, I have 4,000 questions about what you just said. So let me just dive in because you opened a can of worms.
That's what
I'm so excited.
I am opening up a can of worms right now.
No, I love it. Yeah, no, it is. And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this book. So let's just begin with what an ambitious thing to incorporate into your very first book. I really applaud you to have that sort of cold open with, you may not like this character right off the bat because they did this big no-no, and she still has a massive story ahead of her. And I want you to get to know her. So just from the reader perspective, I'm so excited about that. Let's talk about the cheating aspect, the cheating trope, how unforgiving or how hard it is in the romance genre, but then again, how it's such a big no-no for women. Like, it's bad enough when the male characters do it, but how hard on our main female characters are we? How unforgiving are we of having them have this multidimensional experience, this layered story, being human? Again, these stories, yeah, they're, wild and crazy and fun and
Sure.
magnified, but they're still about people,
Mhm.
and they're still about the things that we do in our lives. And I think it's interesting as you're talking about infidelity, one of the things is watching someone being willing to process, why did I do something? Someone else wondering, why do I want to stay and make this better? That process of forgiveness and amends, and just the unpacking of, what do I think about love? What do I think about relationships? What was I taught? What was I told? Where are my insecurities? All of these things come to the surface.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think it's really ambitious to address them in a book. So I just threw a lot at you, but let's just start with, what went through your mind when you were thinking, oh, it's my first book and this is going to be my introduction? Is this really controversial topic?
Sure. So for me, what I find entertainment when it comes to reading are more dramatic, angsty filled stories. I love domestic thrillers where there's messiness between, couples and their neighbors. And when it comes to romances, I got to have that tension. I've got to have that angst. I need craziness in the middle of it all. So when I decided this is going to be the book I'm going to attempt to write, I knew it had to be angsty. I knew it had to pack a punch. I wanted it to be a book that I would love. And so that's where it came from.
Absolutely. So let's focus in on the choice to have your main female character be the one who cheats and who makes a mistake and who sets the story on that path, because that's so controversial.
I think it's important to see people for who they truly are because, like I mentioned earlier, we are all a dichotomy of sorts. We all have good in us, so we all have bad qualities of us. But that's just it, is that sometimes those bad qualities are not bad, how they manifest themselves, if that makes sense. And I think that's important to recognize about ourselves, about anybody, is that no one is perfect. When I was developing Tatum's story, I kind of set the goal of, okay, she cheats. Let's make her likable. How do we do that? How is this sin forgivable? And as a not just a writer, but as a woman myself, as Emmy, as a friend, as a daughter, what are some things that I haven't forgiven myself about? It sent me on a journey of forgiveness and what that means. What does it take for something to be forgivable? What does it take for us to pardon a mistake, to pardon a sin, if you will? And so that's the direction I went in for Tatum.
I think it's a really important conversation, though, because I think that there can be this push towards perfection, right?
Yes,
Perfection in storytelling, perfection in characters, perfection in chemistry. But it does miss the mark when we do want that angst, yearning, tension, growth, character development. I mean, if we have nothing to move towards or achieve or fix, what's our
absolutely,
actual story? You think about stories in your own life, things that have happened to
absolutely.
you, things that have happened to people around you. And some of them have a lot of grit. Some of them have a lot of layers, and some of them are at that level where we're harsher on women than we
Yeah,
are on men. And that can be really revealing to us.
absolutely.
And then there's that whole experience of forgiveness and making amends and opening our hearts again. And what does that teach us about ourselves? What does that teach us about our capacity, our relationships, all of
Absolutely.
those things? So I love a story that's a little challenging at first and then takes you on that journey, because that is so powerful. It's so impactful. And I think that I'm so excited about this story in particular because it seems like it spans time in the life cycle. It's not just a story of, hey, I'm 22 and I have no life experiences
Right.
and I fell in love and it's great, which is a wonderful story, by the way. But when we have to do our own work and process, hey, what's my internal programming? What is that voice in my head telling me to do? And how do I combat that? And how do I grow through that? That's what I'm
Right.
excited about. So seeing this story that happens when they're later in life and they have careers and they've got life under their belt and they've had time to process, what did I do? How can I fix it?
Absolutely.
Or ruminate, what did she do to me?
Absolutely.
and how
Absolutely.
did it affect me? Oh, I think that's
Absolutely.
so beautiful.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
and I would love to touch a little bit on even as readers, right? You and I are both avid readers. What is it like when we're harder on the female characters?
Oh,
And what are the expectations we have for them? And how does that parallel the expectations we have of women just in the world? Do you find that that's something that you're seeing?
oddly enough, yes. I was actually talking to an author friend of mine who just had a release, and her main female character is she's very sassy, she's very independent, and she's almost to the point of being mean and being cold. And a lot of readers did not resonate with that, and they were calling her insufferable. But she was a woman with a career and didn't want people to get in her way. She knew what she wanted. And my friend pointed out, if it was a man, we'd be swooning over him. But as a woman, it's crazy. It's grade school all over again. It's like we've been fashioned to think that women need to be soft. They need to be perfect. They need to be kind. They need to be loving. They need to be doting on that one man and, hanging on his every word and fixing him dinner at night. Those are all great things. Don't get me wrong, those are wonderful things, but oh my gosh, women are beautiful and amazing just the way they are. Whether, they are cold, whether they're introverted, whether they like to read, whether they like to stay in, whether they eat out all the time, whatever.
No, I love what we were talking about because I think it's really an interesting conversation of how we perceive women, the things that we unconsciously put on them, the expectations. And when women exist outside of that, we get called insufferable.
Yes.
And Emmy, I think I might be insufferable. I think
No,
I might be one
no.
of those people.
If you are,
And
then I
you know
am.
what? That's okay. We are together. And I really think that that's
Absolutely.
okay too. And I think that I love stories that have more layers and complications and can relate a little bit more to real life and still have that romance aspect to them
Yes,
and still remind us that we're allowed to have standards, we're allowed to have boundaries, we're allowed to want different things, we're allowed to not just roll over immediately the first time someone does something nice and
exactly.
to really have standards, have questions, all of those things. I think that they're really relatable,
Absolutely.
even when they get under people's skin. I actually think that that's the thing where it's like this person can irritate us, but it almost reminds me of either what
That's
I want to be doing or what I'm not doing or what
absolutely.
I'm embarrassed that I did. But it brings this really human quality to it versus just sort of a carbon copy of this perfect woman that could show up in every story. But just as we like our main male characters to be all over the map, I love when women are as well. But the
Absolutely.
funniest thing about your book that I have not read yet, by the way, but I'm so into it, I cannot wait to read it, is I always say that it's easier to eat crow when it's warm. Meaning, when you make a mistake, it's easier to apologize immediately because it's a little less bitter.
Absolutely.
Your people they have over a decade between making this right. I cannot wait to see the nightmare that is emotionally for these people.
And, that's another thing, that going back to even what we were just talking about with women, is that there's a reason why people act a certain way. if that makes sense.
Mhm.
There's a reason
Yes.
why women are reserved. There's a reason why they protect their heart and maybe come off cold. There's a reason. I know the cliche of, be kind to people because everyone's fighting a battle. And it's so true. We don't know what people have gone through. I think through perfectionism, I think people feel safe behind their keyboards. Same thing with books. It's easy to cast judgment on someone if they're not real, but they are
Yeah.
real, if that makes sense. Same thing with Tatum. I still feel like some people will probably like to cast that stone at Tatum because she did the unforgivable sin. But I think when they finally hear her entire story of why it happened, what actually happened, I think people will be a little bit more forgiving.
One of the interesting things that you've mentioned is that these characters are a little bit older and they've had some kind of difficult interactions or situations between them that they've had to move through. And I think that that's a powerful form of storytelling, right? Like we all love the insta love, over the moon, over the top. And that's a really interesting way to showcase love and attraction
Mhm.
and chemistry. But I also think it's really interesting when people are demonstrating the depth and weight of their love for one another by moving through difficult life experiences together. And I think that that's another way to show that long lasting love,
Mhm.
not just that like insta lust or chemistry. Can you talk a little bit about why that's an important story to tell and why you were interested in telling that?
Absolutely. I think there's a push in general. I know from my own upbringing to find love, get married. And when does that happen? But usually in your 20s. Well, times are shifting. Women are waiting longer to have partners and, start families if they choose to do so. And so it really interests me to show some characters that were older finding love. And also with that, and this is not to discredit younger readers, people who find love when they're in their 20s, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in those years. I didn't realize it myself. I'm almost 40 myself. And I didn't realize how much I was going to go through in my 20s and in my 30s. I had no idea until I went through it. And I feel like, especially for John and Tatum, they're dealing with infidelity. That's such a huge topic. And I felt like giving them space only to come back together. I feel like there was some maturity that had to happen in between to make their story more compelling, if that makes any sense.
That makes perfect sense, and I'm so excited about it. I think it's so brave to, for your debut novel, have that be one of the foundations of the story and something that they're both moving through and moving past and coming back together and having a different understanding of as we age. And I love those stories too. And I think that that's one of the messages that I like to put out there is that our lives are long. If we're lucky and we have stories that go on after the age of 21, after the age of
Mhm.
25, there's more stories to be told, there's more experiences to have. And I love that you're entering this space and right off the bat, starting with a story that would appeal to older readers like myself, who I love all of the the younger stories.
Oh,
I
yeah.
absolutely love them because I did not have sort of a soft and pleasant time at that time in my life. So it's really nice to read those books and to have that experience through storytelling. But I also think that you do meet and come back together with people later on in life, and it's a really powerful story to tell.
Thank
So I'm glad that you're here taking up space and
Well,
doing that.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Emmy, I'm always wondering what writers' intentions are for their readers as the readers close the book. So when you're thinking about your first readers of your first book, putting down Ricochet and coming to the end of it, what's the feeling that you want to leave them with?
Ooh. Honestly, I want them to feel hopeful. I guess that's maybe every author's dream, but I hope for people to look at this story and look at the application to their own life. Because Ricochet is so heavy on seeking forgiveness, learning how to forgive, learning how to receive forgiveness. That's such an important thing that I feel like we are taught from a young age, ask for forgiveness, say you're sorry, da, da, da. But we don't know the heaviness of that until you are faced with the situation of someone doing the unthinkable, the unforgivable. Can you actually forgive them? Can you forgive yourself? And I feel like all of us have that something in our lives. That's something that either we hold a grudge or we hold it against ourselves. And if anything, I just hope people start to just think about that, open up the conversation to themselves that they are forgivable. They are worthy of love despite the mistakes that they have made. That other people, even though they have made mistakes, they're worthy of love too. So that sums it up. I know it's a little bit more complicated than that, but I just hope it opens up that conversation for people.
Oh, and that's such a powerful one. So I can't wait to read your book. I'm so excited about it. Well, one of the other aspects of this podcast is that I always invite my guests to write and read a love letter, either to their younger self or to their readers. So I would love to give you the floor so that you can read us your love letter.
Absolutely. So I am a very emotional person. So I decided to write to my readers because I hopefully will not cry as much as if I wrote to my younger self. So to my reader, when I decided to write a book, a wise woman told me to set a goal that when I achieved it, I would feel successful. Some authors are determined to become bestsellers, to sell millions, to have their stories become the next big blockbuster. These things are incredible, and who knows what my future will look like. But my goal was simple. One person I didn't know reading my book. That's it. Needless to say, I have thought of you often, where you are in life, and what would move you to pick up my book. These might be silly romance novels created to entertain and help you escape. But please know that you, yes, you, the one that is hearing these words, you have been on my mind, hoping that somehow my manipulation of letters and words could somehow bring you joy, bring you hope, and maybe bring you healing. You have already been the key to my success, and for that I am forever grateful. I hope I have made you proud. Emmy.
Oh. Emmy, thank you for that beautiful letter. And as someone who's so excited to be the reader, I just really appreciate it. And I'm so glad you're in this space and writing these books and being creative and sort of inviting us into your world. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for providing this platform that I could come on and talk about it. This has been fun.
Good. Well, I hope you come back. And it's an open invitation for anything that you're writing. Please keep me in mind. Emmy, I've had such a good time speaking with you today. Where can the listeners find you? I will make sure to put links in the show notes, but tell us how we can reach out to you.
Absolutely. The best way is going to be on Instagram, and that is at emmyk.write, or on TikTok, which is just my name, at Emmy Kendall. My DMs are always open. I'm fairly extroverted, so if you want to talk, come jump in my DMs. Let's talk. Let's chat.
I love how you just said I'm fairly extroverted. Meanwhile, I have said since I first spoke to you that you and I are the giggliest that I've ever been on any recording, hands down, ever. Like, I've recorded with my best friends and I haven't laughed this much.
Good. I'm so glad.
Yes, I will say, as the resident introvert, that Emmy is very extroverted, and I just find your energy so warm and welcoming. And I'm so excited that you're in this space writing stories and writing complex characters and writing different kinds of love stories. So I can't wait for that. And I hope you come back soon.
Thank you so much, Casey.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok at Love Letters and Books. And if you're interested in being a guest on Love Letters and Books, suggesting your favorite author, or just want to write in an original love letter to yourself or someone else to be read on air, please send me an email at lovelettersandmixtapes@gmail.com.